Okay, here we go again. So I just did another introduction and the video wasn't running. Sorry, this might be a little bit shaky. I'm actually filming in my bed, not at my desk, because I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, and it is flaring, so it's difficult for me to set up right now. Because of the nature of this video, there are two things I want you to know up front. I really dislike when people give enticing titles to their videos, and then when you click on it, they say, oh, watch to the end. And they do that so that they will get the analytics through YouTube. Number one, my channel is not monetized. This video is not monetized and never will be. And so the first thing I have to do are some disclosures. But as soon as I do the disclosure information, I am going to set out the reasons of what I think happened to him, but not who did it to him, and I think I know the reason why. But we'll get on that in just a moment. Number one, though, is that no one under age 16, 17, or even 18, this video is not intended for you to view. It discusses adult things, and these are things that, not because you're not intelligent or you can't figure it out, you just haven't lived long enough. And they're not appropriate, I don't believe, for you to watch. However, in his book, Matthew Perry says that he was around age 13 when he began drinking because of some issues in his family life. I am now in my 60s, and when I was age 16, I certainly knew people who drank on the weekends, and drugs were not, I grew up in a small town, and drugs were not a part of that at all, but people did drink, and young people, 8th graders, were drinking until they passed out. And we weren't smart enough to know that why would somebody in 8th grade be drinking so much that they have to drink until they pass out, and because we didn't ask what's going on at home. But anyway, this video is not intended for you, so please, please, if you have any addiction issues yourself, or if you know someone who is, talk to an adult that you trust. Your parents would be a good person. If you don't feel comfortable, talk to your school guidance counselors. I know you think that they're just crazy, but they're not. They have the education and the experience to help you with this. And I promise you, high school is just a blip, a small one in your life. And if you can help somebody now get through an addiction at this young age, then they may not have the issues that poor Matthew Perry dealt with his entire life, and which eventually cost him his life. Number two is copyright law. Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1986, 17 U.S. Code 107, states that fair use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. The only reason I'm reading that is because I'm going to reference a few sentences from his book, and also a passage from an article that was published on people.com, People magazine. Usually they have the copyright is that they don't want you making money off their work. The video is not monetized. It's only a couple sentences, and I'm certainly not taking anything away from them that they would make money off of what we're going to discuss, but it is for discussion purposes only. Number two, I want to be very, very clear about this, I am not a licensed lawyer in California, and I am not admitted in the state of California to practice in any state or federal courts in California. And I'm going to make sure that the opinions expressed in this video are just that. They are my opinions and my opinions alone. And so I do have some language about that. The views and opinions expressed by me in this video do not and should not be viewed as a reflection of YouTube, any and all of its affiliates or parent company. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and all opinions expressed in this video are mine, and there's a flag. There are two flags in my room, I'm sorry. Are my own. And just one moment. And again, this information is presented for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional, medical, or legal advice. Again, I'm not licensed in the state of California in any of their courts, federal or state court, and nothing that I say in this video should be construed as legal advice or legal opinion. Let's see. At first, this will probably be 4 videos because I think I can only do 45 minutes on my phone. And so I thought that it was important that we talk about the law first, because we can't get to the medical or the reason for death until we look at what the law in California and now the federal law is concerning this case. And so I'm not a doctor, specifically a pathologist, and any and all comments that I will make in a future video during that video are my non-expert opinions and only speculations. They're not intended to be a statement of fact and are not reflected to be accurate expressions of the law and or any comment regarding any and all discussion regarding related medical discussions. Any and all statements are my sole views and opinions and questions and are not, again, not statements of fact. They are also not to be considered accurate legal or medical advice or interpretations of the law or of medical certainty. And they are only my views only. And here's the last one. Visitors to this YouTube channel and specifically this video may post views and opinions in reaction to the video, but any and all opinions and or responses to any expressed opinions or information uploaded, expressed, or submitted by the creator, which is me, whether submitted or commented on in this video or any outside message boards, videos, etc., are solely the views and opinions and responsibility of the person submitting them and do not necessarily reflect the opinions expressed in this video or held by me, and certainly not by YouTube, its parent company, or any of its affiliates. And I think that takes care of all the disclaimer things. Again, these are my opinions and my opinions only. And it's my opinion that we need to discuss the law in detail. Now, I will tell you this. I have filmed this. I have 87 pages of notes on my laptop. I haven't printed all of those out, but this is just a part of them. I've tried to organize this as much as I possibly can. And I filmed this video twice, and I've deleted it twice because I wondered whether it was the right thing to do. And then about a month ago, when the news came out that both the LA Police Department and the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency of the federal government, were doing an investigation of this, I actually called the police department, the LA Police Department, to give them the information that I had and what I think actually happened to him. And they said that there was no investigation. They were not investigating this matter. They didn't go into any detail whatsoever. And I said, well, listen, let me just give you what I have, and you'll never hear from me again. And the gentleman just said, have a nice day, ma'am, and he hung up. So I want it very, very clear, this is not an attempt by me to insert myself into this investigation at all. And it is not an attempt by me to, shoot, I forgot the word, but I know it. It's to cause the investigating departments, whether that's the feds or the Los Angeles Police Department, to abuse them with false information, things of this nature. Although I feel that if they had talked to me for just 10 minutes and then done a brief investigation and brought this person in for questioning, this would be sewn up. And it's, to me, anyway, because I have been present at the testimony of literally thousands of witnesses from every walk of life, and everything you need to know about this case is found in the pathologist report. I think that the pathologist that conducted the autopsy and wrote the report did an incredibly fantastic job. And if they would just simply listen to him, and I'm not going to say his name either, but I think they would be that they're, I think it would lead them to a place that they need to go. Now, I did hear recently that they are looking at a female actress who apparently must have been in rehab with Matthew while she was obviously in rehab, and then they became friends. And so, for whatever reason, they are investigating her, and she and her lawyers have said that she had absolutely nothing to do with his death. They have, according to the news, I don't know if it's true or not, that they had a warrant for her phone and her laptop. And I will tell you now, it is my belief, in my opinion, that it is not her. She didn't do this. And I think that they're wasting their time with her. Now, I will tell you this. The police have the absolute right to lie to the public. They can lie to you if you are brought in for questioning for any reason. They can lie to you up one side and down the other, but if you lie to them, they could consider that obstruction of justice. Again, that's not a legal opinion. I'm just telling you that. So, also, they give the public what they want the public to know. You have to bear that in mind. So, the information about the warrant, the information about investigating this unnamed female that was in rehab with him, may be just that. It may be a public ruse. I don't know. But let me start by saying this. I am not a huge Matthew Perry fan. He was brilliant, in my opinion, as Chandler. I don't think anybody else could have played him as wonderful as he did. He also was in one season for a few weeks, a couple episodes of In the West Wing. In a dramatic role, he played a lawyer, and I thought he did very well at that. But the thing that he said in his book about that, River Phoenix was dead and there are people like Keanu Reeves walking around was just absurd. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was Keanu Reeves, anybody named. Just absurd. And then he was saying that when he found out about that Chris Farley died, he punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall. Big deal. It was Chris Farley who died, not Matthew Perry at that time. So I just don't think, I didn't cry when I found out about his death. I wasn't surprised, and when it later came out that he had died from a ketamine poisoning, I wasn't surprised by that either. And that is the biggest mistake that I made. It's the mistake that the police, I believe, in the investigation of this matter, they're all making that same mistake. And let me, and I came across a quote, well, not a quote, I heard it on a short from Elon Musk, of all people. And he said this, he said, you ignore wishful thinking because you want it to be true. And that is such an incredibly true statement. And I have some more notes about that. I thought I put it in the backpack here. Right. And it's like you want something to be true even when it isn't. And if you take that approach, you are always going to be, to some degree, wrong. And your goal is to be less wrong. And then I added to that, arriving at the truth and formulating a plan of action based on truth or facts, not wishful thinking. Well, what could be wishful thinking in this matter? I don't know. Maybe the detective. Now, I will tell you this. There's not one thing that's being investigated in this matter that is not being coordinated by a prosecuting attorney. That is who is leading on this. And maybe this prosecuting attorney says, hey, I'm going to crack the Matthew Perry thing. I want to run for public office. This will give me that in. Maybe somebody on the DEA team, the feds, they want to be their unit manager or whatever the correct thing. They may want a promotion. They may feel, hey, I cracked this case, that I will get that. The local LAPD may want to feel like, hey, the feds come in here and they're always taking over things. We want to show them that we know how to run an investigation as well. And who knows, maybe one of them wants to write a book. They might want to be a guest speaker at a convention where they get paid from $50,000 to $100,000 just for expressing an opinion. But all of that is wishful thinking. Now, I want to go back. I don't know if this, because I started and it wasn't filming. I worked for 30 years in Richmond, Virginia. That was where I was based, but I worked throughout the state of Virginia, and I also traveled to other states to work as well, mostly in civil litigation, but I did do some criminal cases, and that was only in the pre-hearing to see whether it could be certified. It was held initially in the lower court to see if it could be certified to a higher court to be presented before a jury, because that's the way things are in Virginia. I don't know about any other jurisdiction. But the chief medical officer of the state of Virginia was located right here in Richmond, Virginia, and her name is Dr. Ferrer. And she is the woman that Patricia Cornwell based her character on in all of her books, Scarpetta. And she and I would talk before trial, because you always, no matter who you were, you would have to wait until your case is called before you can go up. And she always told me, and this was what we talked about every single time, is that you have to follow the facts. You can't follow or make an assumption. You have to look at the facts and go where the facts lead you, even if it's contrary to all previous belief. And you have to listen to that. And you have to pay attention to that in this, because everybody is making the same assumption, and I believe it's the wrong assumption, and I will tell you why right now. I believe that Matthew Perry was murdered. I believe that it was not intended for him to die from this, but I believe that the person responsible for this gave him those drugs. I do not believe that he took the drugs at all, and they are focusing on the wrong drug. They're focusing on the ketamine. They need to focus on some other drugs, and they need to focus on the facts at the scene that they found, and there's no investigation done. And so that's why we need to talk about the law first and foremost. So when the final autopsy was done after the toxicology report, the pathologist found that it was his death was an accident. And I was like, whoa, how can that possibly be? And so that's what led me way back, I think that was in October or November of 2023, to start looking at California law and say, why on earth would he think that? And we're going to talk about that right now. But yeah, I think that he was murdered. I think that the person who did this should be charged and found guilty of second-degree murder. I have, again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is not legal opinion. It's just from reading the California law that I will give to you. Now, apparently for 7 years, there's an organization in California, and the name of it is Drug-Induced Homicide, Inc., and it's a registered 501c nonprofit organization in California. And their mission is to raise awareness about the effectiveness of criminal investigation and prosecution in reducing deaths related to illicit drugs, advocate for a shift in thinking within our judicial system, and that's in California, away from past protocols focusing on accidental to now classifying cases as criminal, to advocate for laws that provide greater accountability to those who willfully distribute illicit drugs, and support families of victims who were unlawfully delivered a controlled substance resulting in death. And let me tell you why they have been unsuccessful. Now, this is what's called drug-induced homicide law. And this was actually put together by William Barr, who was the Attorney General back in 2019 under President Trump, as a matter of fact. And he had this put together for a meeting of all of the Attorney Generals in the United States. And it's a great brief, and it explains what's happening in California law. And I'll cut to the chase on this and tell you this, that There's something that are called DRAM, and that's D like dog, RAM like Michael, DRAM shop, SHOP like Paul, laws. And let me see if I have exact information on that. Sorry, I wasn't going to get into that part yet, but I might as well. Right. And right now, what that means is California law recognizes that each person is responsible for their own willful acts as well as any injuries they cause to others as a result of consuming either alcohol to an extent that you're impaired or consuming illicit drugs. And what that means is that the sale of the drug, and we'll talk about ketamine in this case, the sale of the drug is not what killed Matthew Perry or anyone else who dies of a drug overdose. It is the consumption of that drug, and those are the DRAM shop laws, and that is what this organization of drug-induced homicide is trying to change the law in California. And this is my initial thoughts about that, because I too believed in the beginning, until I really looked at the pathologist report and the autopsy, that Matthew Perry obtained the drugs and that he willfully took those drugs. And we will get into, when we look at the autopsy, which is probably a couple videos from now, and I believe it will present clear and very convincing evidence that he did not commit suicide. He did not want to die. In fact, the very opposite will show what was going on with him. And it's unfortunate that he was making these changes in his life, because it's what led to his death, in my opinion. So, let's just talk about the understanding drug-induced homicide law right now, and then we will probably be at the end of this one. But if you don't understand the law in California as to why the pathologist made the determination that this was an accidental death, you can look at the autopsy all day long and it's not going to make any sense to you. But when you see, if you look at it with different eyes and not just assuming the fact that he took the drugs, then you'll look at the fact, well, why would somebody give him drugs? And that fact is absolutely answered in the autopsy. And in fact, and something else that made me look at this, and if you'll bear with me one moment, I actually have information from Matthew Perry himself. I'm sorry, can you, okay. So, he had been in rehab successfully, unsuccessfully. He had sobered up, he had gone back. And this is what he said about that. It's important, but if you lose your sobriety, it doesn't mean you lose all that time and education. Your sober date changes, but that's all that changes. You know everything you knew before, as long as you were able to fight your way back without dying. You learned a lot. So here's Matthew Perry. He has a long stretch history of taking ketamine lately. He would know how much you can take and what you should do. And ketamine was not the only illicit drug found in his system. And so Matthew Perry would know, it's my absolute firm belief, that if he was going to take ketamine of his own volition and not given to him by a treating medical doctor, and we'll get into that first under the autopsy report, then he would not have given himself an overdose in light of overwhelming evidence that shows, I think that he was planning some sort of a comeback. I don't know whether he had been approached for maybe them turning his book and his life into a movie, because he was on an upward trend. And I'll tell you this part too. Pickleball, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of a combination of tennis and badminton. It's played with 4 people, 2 on each side. And Matthew Perry, when he lived in Canada as a young teenager, was a tennis champion. And so he could have actually gone into tennis or into acting. And how he ended up an actor, I don't know. But that's why I think he enjoyed playing pickleball so much. And he was getting in shape. And that week, that whole week before, the people who were with him kept saying about how he was tired. And they didn't understand what was going on with him. And somebody was giving him drugs, in my opinion. And I know why. And I wish the police would call me. And initially what I was thinking about when all this started and when it came out as being an accident, and when I assumed that he's the one who did it, was to support this organization called drug-induced homicide. They're trying to change the law. This is an election year, and you could put in, let your people who are running for office for either re-election or to be elected into a new office, and they meet on, I believe it's the first Wednesday or first Monday of December after the election. And sorry, I have to stretch my legs out. And so I thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be cool? I don't have any money. I don't have any connections whatsoever, but he literally has rich friends, and they could start a campaign called Maddie's Law. And because the first sentence of his book, and this is why I read the copyright, it says, "Hi, my name is Matthew. Although you may know me by another name, my friends call me Maddie, and I should be dead." But he lived, and he fought his way back to life. And he would not have given that up. And all that he went through, all through those terrible, terrible days, and all of that surgery that he had, which he expounds upon in detail in his book. Then I was thinking, you know what, get Maddie's Law in there about drug-induced homicide and see what's going on. So, and then this is what he says. He said, "I would like to be remembered as somebody who lived well, loved well, and was a seeker." And he also, and he told that to Tom Power at what was called Hot Docs, Ted Rogers Cinema in Toronto. And Powers later stated that his paramount thing is that he wants to help people. And Matthew added, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want. The best thing about me, bar none, is that if an alcoholic or drug addict comes up to me and says, 'Will you help me?' I can say yes and follow up and do it." He said, "When I die, I don't want friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want that to be the first thing that's mentioned. And I'm going to live the rest of my life proving that." And I think it goes to show that his friend that he met in rehab, who was been identified, quote unquote, as a female actress, has said that about him. And maybe he was trying to mentor her through sobriety as well, being there for each other. I think that Matthew Perry, I think it's an atrocity. I think that he was very let down by somebody who was in a position of trust for him. And there are a whole lot of reasons why I think it should be second-degree murder. But let's talk about drug-induced homicide, and then we'll end this video. And so going back to this brief by, and I will put a link to this brief in the description box down below. And it says, "In an effort to combat the rising tide of fatalities, many states have implemented drug-induced homicide laws to hold drug dealers accountable for the deaths. Unfortunately, California is not one of those states, despite statistically significant increases in drug overdose death rates." And for many years, most prosecutors charged only those drug-related deaths involving rival drug gang fights as being homicides. But the focus is now broadened to also examine overdose deaths as prosecutable homicides against those who sold and distributed the drugs causing the overdose. And it's important to emphasize that not every death because of a drug overdose is a criminal matter. Some are suicides and some are simply accidents. Matthew Perry was not suicidal, not in any way whatsoever. This was not an accident. This was deliberate. Death was not the end result that they wanted, of course, but that's what happened. And that person should be charged, should be prosecuted, should have a trial, and be found guilty and serve time in jail. And again, it's not because Matthew Perry was an actor or somebody who I had great affection for. It's because he was a human being. He did not want to die, and he did everything in his power at that time to get his life back on track. And I believe that's what he's doing. And he had every right to that life. And for it to be taken for such a stupid reason, it pisses me off, you know? So let's talk about, I'm thinking about why I read all this stuff to you. Because it's each state. And I'm looking at it for why the feds are here. Because California does not have those laws right now. They're not on the book. So maybe they called in the feds. And this is really important because, and again, if you want to read this whole thing, I'll put it into the description box below where you can find a copy of it. Now, I will tell you this. Had this happened in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is the only state in the entire union that has a statute that applies to controlled substance and provides that the delivery must be done intentionally. And if this had happened in Pennsylvania, even if Matthew Perry had purchased the drugs and then taken them and then died from as a result of that purchase, it would have been considered a drug-induced homicide. And California has no felony murder or drug-induced homicide statute that would apply to overdose situations. That's really, really important. Let's talk about that again. They have no felony murder or drug-induced homicide statute that would apply to overdose situations, and then prosecutors are left to cobble together a criminal liability theory using a second-degree murder or manslaughter charge with a negligent or reckless element. And it could make use, and that's a big could, of its involuntary manslaughter statute. Because again, the intention was certainly not to murder him, but they gave drugs to a known drug addict. This was a person, I believe, entrusted in his life, and that makes it twice as bad. And I think this is second-degree murder, but what I think makes no difference. But let me look. What I'm looking at right now. Okay, here. This is what I look. This is why I think that the feds are in on this. In those states making use of a result-oriented scheme, and California, remember, has no felony murder because of this, they may follow the reasoning set forth in the leading federal case on the issue, which is Barrage, and that's spelled B-U-R-R-A-G-E, Barrage, I think, Barrage maybe, versus the United States. It's 21 U.S.C. 841 B1C, which provides for punishment in the event that death or serious bodily injury resulted from the use of the drug. But this is where we come in, and I think that's what the prosecutors under the federal law are thinking, that they may be able to prosecute, but they're looking at the wrong person. And Barrage was a longtime drug user, and in the Barrage case, Barrage was a drug dealer, and there was a guy named Banka, B-A-N-K-A, and he was a longtime drug user, and he died following an extended binge that included using heroin purchased from Barrage. And at trial, medical experts testified that Bank might have died even if he had not taken the heroin that Barrage provided. And then denying a motion for judgment of acquittal, the judge, and what they do is that the prosecution put on their case, and at the end of that case, the defense made a motion to acquit. The judge denied it. The trial court instructed the jury that the government only had to prove that heroin was a contributing cause of death. But this is a big but here, the U.S. Supreme Court looked at both actual and proximate cause. Now let's stop right here. Proximate cause refers to the primary cause or the incident that sets everything into motion. In other words, it's the event that directly leads to an injury, damage, loss, or in this case, murder or death, but not in a criminal case. And the Supreme Court held that at least where the use of the drug distributed by Barrage was not an independently sufficient cause of the victim's death, he could not be held liable unless such use is a but-for cause of death. Thus, under Barrage, a particular drug causing a contributory effect to death is not sufficient to create criminal liability. Now, but beyond the issue of whether the death is an accident versus a homicide, the medical examiner and the toxicologist must understand the legal requirements and what ultimately may be asked of them during testimony in homicide prosecutions such as these. And they have to understand everything about it. And I think, again, this is 100% my opinion. I am making a guess. I do not know any of this to be true. I can't emphasize that enough. But it is my guess that since this case is going forward under with the DEA involved and that search warrants have been issued, that they are thinking of bringing this case under and to be tried, if they can find the right defendant, to the federal case. And another thing that I believe that they're making a mistake in this case is that just from the article I read, it was very, very brief, that this person and their lawyers have said over and over, I didn't do this. I would never hurt him. This is not me. They're not listening to what this witness is saying because they have a history. Drug addicts lie. Alcoholics lie. You bring them into things, especially if they are associated with some kind of criminal activity, they lie. And so they have a base for thinking that people lie. But if they're going to make the assumption that this person is lying and they're getting the warrant, so they must not believe that that person's telling the truth or the statements to their lawyer, they should also consider what if she is telling the truth. How did this happen? How did he ingest enough ketamine on that day and in close proximity to when he died in that pool to kill him? That's a good question, and we don't know that. But I think that they are trying to find the drug laws under the federal. And believe me, there will be defense attorneys jumping up and down all over the place about this, and it will go, I believe it could go into case law, both in California and maybe even to the Supreme Court. I don't know. But I think that's about what we need to know right now, and why I was so surprised about this. And I'll tell you another thing, if you'll bear with me one moment just to look this up. And thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry, just one moment. Because I was going to read all this, but you don't need to look all of this. But let's talk about the felony murder statute for a second, because I have a lot of, and we'll do that in video 2. I've got a lot of information about felony murder in California and what that details and what can cause that and what's considered second-degree murder. But a significant number of states, and maybe this is what California is trying to do, I don't know, that have drug offenses within their murder statutes. And while the laws have been in the books for a considerable time, they are now, only now, being considered for use in overdose cases. And a felony murder statute allows a prosecutor, this is important, to charge an offense which requires no specific mental state other than that required for the enumerated offense. The law may specifically state that no proof of intent to cause death is required. In general, proof of the underlying offense and the cause of death will be sufficient to obtain a conviction under that approach. And I think that's maybe what California's going to try to do, maybe what they're going to try to do under the federal law. I don't know. And additional evidence, such as proof that the underlying felony must be inherently dangerous to human life, or proof of recklessness in both causation and appreciation or awareness of the risk, may be required in some states. So again, if somebody gave this ketamine because it is a Schedule 3 drug, which knocks it out of being Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and a lot of the statutes, which we will get into when we look at that type of statute under California law, they don't recognize Schedule 3 drugs, only Schedule 1, Schedule 2. So maybe they're attempting to take this to the Supreme Court in California and change the law. I don't know. But, so just one moment. Yeah, and this is what I think they may be also doing. Because they don't have the drug-induced homicide statute, they may be trying to do what's called a stand-alone felony, rather than being included in existing murder or other statutes. So maybe they're at least trying to get a felony. Is that, how did they obtain it? And but that's not what I want to talk to you about. Just one moment, in the back here somewhere. And thank you. Just one. And again, sorry that I'm making you wait. I thought I was better prepared. So, maybe I'm not so greatly prepared as I thought. Here's 5. Okay, this is one thing I want to talk about too. Even though it's not specifically enumerated in the statute, causation remains an essential element. For example, when manufacturing or delivering a controlled substance is the underlying felony relied upon in a felony murder prosecution, the state might still be required to prove A, the commission or attempt to commit the felony, 2, the defendant's participation in such felony, and 3, the death of the victim as a result of injuries received during the course or the commission or the attempt. And which I think that if they would get the right person, that that's exactly what they could prosecute from, and without a doubt they would get, because he's dead. And they have another problem too, though, because furthermore, the cause of death might not necessarily be the sole cause of death. And he had an underlying cause. He had a blockage of 75% in one of his heart valves. And prosecuting overdose deaths as homicide will not be what they call the silver bullet to the public health crisis that the nation faces on overdose cases. However, it is one tool in the law enforcement arsenal, which, if used appropriately, can assist locally in focusing on the drug dealers who take advantage of those who have become addicted to such drugs as opiates. That's all you ever hear anymore. But now, fentanyl, you know, there is all the fentanyl that's just flooding into the country, that you take like 1 gram of fentanyl and this will give you 1,000 grams of fentanyl. It'll be 1,000 too much. And so many people are overdosing from these bad doses of fentanyl, and I think that that might be coming up to them as well, but that's still not what I wanted to talk to you about. Because I'm going to tell you why it stopped. Just one moment. Because I have a note that says that this is what happened in this case. But I can't find those notes. Well, I can't find the notes that I want to tell you about, because I wanted to use the right language I had. But because of the law in California, the reason that it wasn't investigated more at the time of his death was because of the law in California. It says if you die from a drug overdose, it's an accident. It's not considered a crime. And I'm looking at just, I'm sorry. Well, anyway, I'm sorry, I have that information, but I just don't know where it is, because once that determination is made, the police stop investigating. It's halted. And so I'm thinking that somebody raised some cane, and I'm glad they did, but they made the wrong assumption. Poor Matthew Perry should be alive right now, but they're looking at the wrong person, and I absolutely believe he was murdered. His death was not intentional, but it happened. And I will try to be better organized in number 2, and then we'll get into his autopsy. And so that's where we are right now. But thank you again. I would appreciate if you would subscribe. The only reason I have my channel right now is to try to get these feral cats fixed. And because they keep having kittens in my shed, they have fallen so far behind on the list for reduced spayed neuter that I'm gonna have to pay for it all myself. The girls are $450, the boys are $300 each. I am absolutely not soliciting donations. I won't accept any. I'm not asking for that. I do make journals, and so I just need the YouTube analytics to come to my channel. That's all I need. But again, this video is not monetized. It will not be monetized. But if you have a social media presence, share it, because they're looking at the wrong person. And I tried to call the police and they didn't want to hear from me. They made a mistake with that too. And the next time we'll get more involved with the federal law, because I have it right here. But even back in October, or whenever the toxicology report came out, I asked the question, where did you get the ketamine? And then I asked it again. So he ingested some form of ketamine on the day he died, but where did he get it? And they're focusing on the ketamine and not what else was in his system. Poor Matthew Perry. But again, thank you for watching. If you have a social media presence, oh my God, share it. And if you feel like you should make money off dead Matthew Perry, that's on your conscience, not mine. But my video is not monetized. It will not be monetized. And if I were Matthew Perry's mother, I would go to this person and I would shake them until they told me the truth about why they killed my child and why they did this horrible, horrible thing. But again, thank you so much for stopping by. Be safe out there. Be well. God bless. Watch your steps. Bye.